Welcome back, guys. It's good to see you again. We're back to talk about the dismissive avoidant and how to address the issues that dismissive avoidants have. So I actually cut the last video off because I was going over, but I wanted to share some crucial things to you guys that will help you in life should you ever come across a dismissive avoidant attachment style, or if you deal with one yourself. But before we get into that, I just wanted to share something that has been happening recently with me in my life. And you know how I talk to you guys all the time about how the words we shape and the frequencies that we put out create certain things. And so for a number of years, my family's very different. I don't see some of my siblings, and things have just happened in that sense. People grow apart, and so during that process, I was without my brother and sister that I grew up with since I was a baby, and there was a number of times that I didn't know what happened. Like I said, people grow apart, and we have to take our own path in order to really find who we are, and I don't have a problem with that. But when we're young and we don't understand those things and they happen to us, we might have to work through some abandonment, or we might have to work through some pain and some hurts. And that's really what I had been working through my whole life since that had happened. And recently, my grandpa passed away. He was a great man to my grandmother, my Grandma Ruth. Amazing. He did cartoons for a living. He helped big time magazines, and he contributed a lot to society. And what he did brought fun and laughter into life. And he just was a really good person. He could be sarcastic at times, but I always appreciated it. And I just wanted to emphasize to you guys that just because one door closes doesn't mean another door won't open. And that's the biggest thing that I've had to learn in life. And just because an opportunity closes and you miss out on an opportunity doesn't mean another opportunity won't open for you. And maybe that's, what God has set aside for you. Maybe that's your destiny. Maybe that's the path you're supposed to go on. But fast forwarding, just recently, a couple days ago, my sister I haven't talked to in about 12, 13 years called my dad up. And at first I was really hesitant. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. When you don't understand what goes on when you're younger, and you're trying to make sense of the world around you, right? I talked to you guys about discovery and just exploring the world. But when we're younger, we don't know the full story. We don't know what happens behind closed doors. We don't know everything, right? And a lot of parents will do that to protect their children. And I now understand why they had to do the things that they had to do, and why some things unfolded, unfortunately, in the way and in the manner that it happened. But I'm just really grateful. I'm talking to her pretty frequently now, and I'm catching up, and it's amazing to see, despite all the things that she's had to go through on her trials, that she has a heart to help others just like I do, in emotional healing, and just has this heart to help the world, to show us that, like I say to you guys, our past does not define our future, and those things don't have to make up who we are. Our genetic makeup also isn't who we are. Just because, maybe your mother or father had an addiction to drugs, and you have a pretendency to be more addicted to drugs because of genetics. Just because you have those things doesn't mean that you have to be held bondage to those things. And so I just wanted to encourage you guys, and I wanted to share where I was at. Obviously, I'm trying to be more open with you guys, because that's something that I have an issue doing personally, and I want to practice what I preach. So thanks for listening to that, guys, and let's get into it. Alright, everybody. So we're back. Now we're ready to hit the nail on the head. Let's hop into it. Number 1 strategy for somebody who has dismissive avoidant personality, and this can also pertain to somebody who has any avoidant personality just in general, is you have to become self-aware. I cannot stress that enough. Now that you have the tools to identify what those circumstances and characteristics are, you can target them, and you can find the best route that you need to take to act accordingly depending upon the attachment style. Number 2 is that you have to question your own self-thoughts. This is a gigantic component to emotional healing. Is we have what I consider to be our inner critic that's in our heart, in our brain, and it tells us things that we don't want to hear. Now, psychologically, our brain is a feedback loop, right? And so, from a scientific perspective, what it is your brain is taking all these past traumas and these traumatic events, and it's causing these responses that is sending these brain impulses out, and it's reminding you, oh, but remember last time that happened. Remember the last time that happened. And you know, if you're spiritual like me, there's other components as well, because I believe in forces outside of this earth that beyond what we can see that don't have a positive agenda for your life. And so we have to really hone in on those thoughts, right? What are they saying? Are they saying something that's encouraging me, or are they putting me down? Are they reminding me of a time that I didn't feel worthy enough? Or are they reminding me of a time that I felt empowered and courageous and strong and was able to do anything I put my mind to? So number 4 is that you find somebody who is safe, that you feel comfortable sharing these emotional concerns with. And that's heavily important because you need a sounding board. I know some of us don't like to vent, some of us like to store stuff in, but it's incredibly toxic. And I've tried both ways, and I gotta tell you that storing things deep down for me just doesn't work. So I do a lot of journaling, and I share things with very few people, but it just depends on what I'm sharing. You know, you don't share everything with somebody, because then you're word vomiting, you're like, you're just heaving all your garbage on them, alright? And being somebody who's been word vomited on, I can't do that, dog. That's just not possible. When you describe to the safe person how you feel, describe also your bodily sensations, right? So talk to you guys about my heart's racing. Okay, I'm palpitating. I'm starting to sweat. I start to get a strain in my voice. I start to get nervous. Use those physiological symptoms that denote that there could be an underlying issue to find out what the root issue is. And by doing that, you can share that with somebody you trust, and they can usually give you, hopefully they better give you good advice, right? Because you're not coming to somebody just for them to act like a total jackass. Number 5 is that we identify. And what I mean by that is you use your words to communicate how you feel. So when you talk to this person, like for example, I'd go to one of my best friends, tell him, hey man, I'm feeling depressed. You know, like an accountability partner. I do believe in accountability partners. So find somebody that you trust, that you don't think is going to air out your dirty laundry. And do that for your self-care, right? And it helps you to strive, right? Because they'll push you for excellence. They want you to meet that marathon line. They want you to get that first place. Real friends want to encourage you and push you beyond your limits, because you're more capable than you could even imagine. But you have to communicate with them, and you have to identify, these are the emotions that I'm feeling. I just want to share them with you so I become more aware of them. Sometimes you don't even have to ask for advice. It's just knowing that somebody is there. So if you deal with this attachment style and you want to bring those emotions to the surface eventually, so you can experience the freedom of everything that this life has to offer, and all the emotions that you have pent up, and all the anger and the pain and the events and the incidents, and you're just bottling it up. Eventually you're going to combust, right? So briefly, I'm going to share this. I worked at a nursing assistant home. I was a certified nurse's aide for a number of years, and that job was insanely difficult at times. I enjoyed the job because I loved hearing wisdom from old people, and I loved hearing their stories and how they interacted with each other and how much different the world was back then. You know, I love the history. Like, a guy would share with me, okay, well, this is how much money I had back in the day. You know, you would have been rich, but with inflation now, it would have been like hundreds of thousands of dollars or even millions of dollars. So I like the economic background of it too. But working there was great in the sense that I got to know these people and I got to understand their stories, and I developed my social skills, and I learned to communicate with others and to empathize with them and sympathize with them. But then I dealt with people that literally had mental illness. I got spit at. I literally got my head punched multiple times by a man who's blind because he didn't like the food I offered him. Yeah, that was a good time. I had to get a nurse to intervene for that because you can't just roll up on an 80-year-old dude and say lights out. You'll get in some severe trouble for that. So I really had to learn how to emotionally regulate, and yeah, we'll just leave it at that. Being here, there was a point at that clinic that I worked at that I just had all these emotions, and I'm trying to make sense of them, and I'm going on breaks. You know, nurses go on like 4 breaks in a nursing home, or 4 to 6 breaks even, and they just walk out like, I'm taking a smoke break. And you wonder why they cut on tobacco so much. Is that job is very strenuous and stressful. So I give a salute to anybody who's worked in a nursing home or a nursing facility and does that for a living. Kudos to you, because I only lasted for a few years before I realized that is not my forte. But getting back to it, there was one day that, I don't know, just a whole bunch of stuff happened, and I literally just lost it, dude. I went outside, and I literally just broke down. I was angry, and I was like crying all of a sudden. I didn't even know what it was from. I just lost it, and I never wanted to feel like that again because I lost complete emotional control of myself. I couldn't even emotionally regulate myself when my cortisol levels were so high. I was too stressed to do anything about it. I just felt like a absolute victim to my own emotions, which is a horrible place to be, especially as a man, when men should be non-reactive and should have emotional regulation. That's not to say that we shouldn't display emotion, but it's to say that we should know when we exhibit emotions and when we don't, right? If my food gets knocked over by an animal, I don't just bawl out into tears and start crying, okay? That's not very masculine at all. That's like, are you 3? But you know, if somebody passed away, yeah, I'm probably going to cry, right? I'm not a psychopath. But just communicating with other people, those differences, bringing them up, bringing them to the surface so you don't have to combust and do what a lot of men do, and we hold these things in and it kills us 20 years younger. But that's for another video. So some side tips if you want to help deal with an avoidant partner that I'm going to give you are: 1, to never smother them. People with a disavoidant personality, as soon as they feel, I told you, as soon as they feel that tinge of intimacy and it feels like you're pushing more love or more romance onto them than they're ready to receive yet, they will withdraw. And nothing kills attraction more than pursuing somebody who is already withdrawing, because not only do you look needy, but you look desperate. And it's not a good look, especially for a man. Now, this is for men in relationships and marriages in particular that I'm discussing right now for the avoidant partner. Because you have to understand that when you work with this type of partner, it's going to be a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be like a magic pill that I'm taking and you're like, I can do this and I'll feel better the next day. Oh, they'll just be happy. They'll want to hold hands with me and we'll go on dates and we'll enjoy each other's company. If something is so deep-rooted in their childhood and it's been years and years or decades even, you got a lot of digging to do and you got a lot of emotional healing to patch up. So I recommend seeing a counselor or a therapist together if you guys are really concerned about where you're at in life. That somebody could give you guidance and direction in places that you don't completely understand. And you need to learn to be patient and really research the attachment style that your partner deals with if you choose to continue with a relationship. You should learn how to handle all their emotions, and you should be prepared to handle everything that they dish at you, because if you stay in a relationship, you need to do the work. If it was your choice to stay in the relationship with somebody who has those issues, you need to know that you are going to be accountable to do the work, and this isn't for somebody who just wants to have a one-time fling and not want to heal together. So my personal opinion is simply this, and you guys can take with it what you want. If you have tried countless times with your partner and you've been patient and gave them the space, and you do all the criteria that I have mentioned here with a disavoidant partner, and one person is getting healing and the other person doesn't want to get healing or has a desire to self-heal, it puts a stop to your destiny, the one who wants to progress, and you do not want to be in this stagnant motion. You guys want to be growing together. You guys want to be planted together and rooted together and solidified together. Everything is together, and too much in society there's this imagination that, oh, it's me, 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 me. When you guys get married, I hope you realize that it is complete dedication, sacrifice, and it is compromise. And a lot of men don't like to hear that word. Well, I don't like to compromise this. Well, you better get used to it, pal, because if you do choose to get married, that will be your future. If you want a wife, you are going to have to learn how to compromise. You are going to have to learn how to self-sacrifice. And the relationships are just the test run. I'm big into Formula One racing. So they have qualifications that determine who's in pole position before the big race, usually on Sundays. And qualifications are just to see what position you're going to be in. So if you are in the state of mind where you're like, I'm not going to give my all, I'll see how this goes. Well, just know that a relationship is always going to be that qualification trial, just like in Formula One. Before you get married, that's going to really determine how dedicated you are to growing together and if you genuinely love each other. So my personal opinion is that if you have one person that doesn't want to heal and one person that wants to self-serve themselves and they have no desire to heal, well, it's toxic to stay in that relationship. It's not a healthy relationship or a marriage. And you need to do what is best for you physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, completely. So the last thing that I want to leave you guys with is something that has also helped disavoidance that I had forgotten to mention previously, is grounding exercises. So for those of you who have dealt with anxiety and you're familiar, you have like the five senses: touch, taste, see, feel, or you have the five senses, and it helps you ground. So if you have a panic attack, you want to ground. You want to put yourself back into the pilot-driver position. Okay, I'm in my body. All right, my name is Ari Hoekstra. I'm 23 years old. I live in Michigan. I have this, 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 and this. I see this. I can feel this. That's called grounding. A lot of people do it when they experience anxiety. And I used to experience anxiety so bad growing up that I literally would feel like I was outside of my body. And it's called derealization anxiety disorder. I don't deal with it anymore because I've really worked through a lot of healing. And I think God has helped me a lot with that. But that's something to be aware of. And I'm definitely going to be doing a video on that as well, with grounding techniques and how to deal with anxiety and stress. We can calm our vagus nerve just by laying a hand here. You can calm heart rate down by just laying a hand here. Some people even bring up emotions. They'll start crying. This is all body work stuff that I'm learning about, but especially in massage therapy, there's little things here and there that I've been learning. Character strengths and weaknesses through testing. You can take quizzes. In particular, I believe it's Pennsylvania EDU has a test for character strengths and weaknesses, and that will help you to identify yourself, right? Where can I be better as a person? And where can I utilize my strengths to help others? Or if you're having self-worth issues, oh, so this is my strength. Well, I have this to rely upon, and I can build upon that, and I can continue to build those strengths. The other thing that I recommend is journaling. I journal a lot less than I should, something I'm working on. But in here I have literally, I write the date, and it's really cool to, you know, I have some business notes in here too. You want to keep your journal separate, like your thoughts and stuff from your business and your reading notes and chapter summaries and things like that. But sometimes life happens. But you want to keep the dates on them, because I have a few journals that I was looking back, and it just shows you how much more you've progressed throughout your life, right? I have them marked, and I just love reading through them. Like, I remember when I was there. I remember when I felt like this, and now look at me. I remember when I dealt with this, and now look at me. And so that's just to give you guys some hope, but there's an idea. And then the other thing that I recommend for those of you who are spiritual is this is a binder here that I have. And it's a prayer book. Now in my prayer book, I have obviously verses. I have prayers of protection and blessing. I have prayers for like world events and things going on in life. I have prayers for prosperity. Literally anything you can imagine. You can put anything you want here. You can write encouraging notes to yourself. You can write verses. I have prayers here for a future spouse. So there's a lot of ideas that you could do with that. But decorate it as your own and make it personalized, you know. It's really special. But you can see here I got like a verse here, and then I wrote around it, and there's a photo of a tree. Because it talks about blooming where we're planted, and a tree that is by the river of water shall always prosper. So if this advice was helpful to you guys, make sure you hit the notification bell to keep on continuing with my subscriptions. Leave a comment below. Hit the like button if this meant a lot to you and it spoke to you. Feel free to comment with any questions you have. And as always, we will hop in the next video to describe disorganized attachment style, which is a menagerie between the two. Again, that's like I can be anxious avoidant and I can be dismissive avoidant, and switch back and forth. And that one's really fun because it's very rare. I think it's 3 to 4% of the population from the statistics that I gave you guys. As always, stay frosty.